Cyrus Ingerson Scofield is a controversial figure in the history of American Christianity. His most notable contribution, the Scofield Reference Bible, first published in 1909, has had a profound and lasting impact on evangelical and fundamentalist Christianity. The publication coincided with the birth of modern Pentecostalism, and Scofield's study notes became a primary source for many of the emerging Pentecostal evangelists and ministers. The Scofield Bible, which included those notes, introduced and popularized dispensationalism, a theological framework that divides history into distinct periods or dispensations in which God interacts with humanity in specific ways. Scofield's notes provided a structured, literal interpretation of the Bible, emphasizing prophecy and the end times, which resonated deeply with American Christians, especially during times of social and political upheaval. Scofield's influence extended far beyond his lifetime, as his reference Bible became a standard tool for Bible study and theological education among evangelical Christians. His dispensationalist framework laid the theological groundwork for a variety of movements within Christianity, including Fundamentalism, Pentecostalism, the Latter Rain movement, and the New Apostolic Reformation. How did C.I. Scofield become such an influential figure for evangelical Christians? When and where did Scofield develop his study notes, and how did they come to be included in his reference Bible? To find out, we must examine the unusual beginnings of his political career. C.I. Scofield was a probate attorney in Kansas who served under the Republican ticket as representative of the 8th District for President Ulysses S. Grant and later as United States Attorney for Kansas. Scofield's wife was one of the heirs of Frenchman Regis Loisel, whose heirs were permitted to select 38,000 acres of land in Kansas upon his death. After Loisel died, Scofield became a significant landowner in Kansas. Scofield moved to Kansas, was appointed to the legislature, and became instrumental in helping elect United States Senator John J. Ingalls. Ingalls jointly produced the Constitution under which Kansas now functions. Ingalls was both Mrs. Scofield's attorney and a direct heir of Loisel. Together with Ingalls, Scofield devised a railroad scam that went largely unreported by its victims. Thousands of dollars were invested by several prominent Republicans, men whose political careers would have suffered had the public known of their involvement. One victim admitted that the way Scofield got our money, and he plucked $2,000 of mine, was by intimating that it was needed by Senator Ingalls, who would see that it was paid. We knew that Ingalls was good, and we supposed that on account of his official position, he did not care to be known in a money-borrowing transaction and was doing the business through a friend as a result. Scofield's political career was short-lived. Scofield was forced to resign from federal office, and he fled the state to Kansas to St. Louis, where he continued swindling people out of money and was forced to flee. In October 1878, Scofield was finally apprehended on charges of forging the name of Emmeline E. Papine, his sister, as an endorser on a promissory note for $900. He had collected that amount from Dr. J. H. McLean, and a warrant was issued for Scofield's arrest. According to officials, this was not the only warrant for forgery against Scofield. He was also wanted in the state of Illinois for forgery against one William Shepard in the amount of $325. Scofield was eventually apprehended in Horicon, Wisconsin, and was jailed for the crimes. While serving time for his crimes, Scofield claimed to have experienced a dramatic conversion to evangelical Christianity. Announcing his alleged conversion experience, he entered the ministry and quickly rose to prominence within the growing evangelical community. His association with Dwight Moody and mentorship under James Brooks, a leading dispensationalist, provided him with the theological foundation and connections needed to influence a broad audience. It was not long before Scofield began to transition from a disgraced lawyer to a respected religious leader. The Scofield Reference Bible became a cornerstone for Christian fundamentalism and Pentecostalism, largely due to its extensive annotations that promoted dispensationalist theology. Scofield's interpretation of the Bible divided history into 7 dispensations, each representing a different era of God's relationship with humanity. This approach emphasized a literal interpretation of biblical prophecy, particularly concerning the end times and the second coming of Christ. Scofield's notes were particularly influential in shaping the eschatological views of early fundamentalists and Pentecostals. His emphasis on the imminent return of Christ and the role of Israel in biblical prophecy resonated with these groups, who were often characterized by a heightened sense of apocalyptic expectation. The notes on angelic visitations and supernatural events found in the Scofield Reference Bible provided theological validation for the charismatic experiences and miraculous claims that were central to the Pentecostal movement. As a result, Scofield's dispensationalism became deeply embedded in the doctrinal foundations of both fundamentalism and Pentecostalism, influencing their teachings, practices, and evangelistic efforts. During the worst months of World War I, Scofield published an updated edition of the Scofield Reference Bible linking key passages of the Bible to world events. The names Gog and Magog from the book of Zechariah, for example, were suddenly associated with Moscow and Tobolsk. His new edition sparked fears that the Bible had predicted the war and that the end of days was imminent. This subtle change contributed to countless doomsday predictions. The 1917 Scofield Reference Bible is consistently the best-selling edition of the Scofield Bible. The Latter Rain movement and many of its splinter groups owe a significant part of their theological foundation to the teachings of C.I. Scofield. When Latter Rain emerged as a new wave of Pentecostalism in the late 1940s, the movement was characterized by a renewed emphasis on the restoration of apostolic ministries, prophetic gifts, and supernatural experiences. Scofield's dispensationalist framework provided a theological justification for these beliefs, particularly his notes on the role of Israel in biblical prophecy and the concept of angelic visitations. After William Branham's stage persona was recreated to include an alleged angelic being as part of his stage act, leaders in the movement used Scofield's reference notes as justification for the unusual claim. This set the precedent for others to make similar claims. Since Latter Rain developed from British Israelism and Christian identity, and many key figures in Latter Rain were also respected figures in those movements, Scofield's Reference Bible became a primary source for developing new theology. Since his notes were published alongside Bible text, many readers of his Reference Bible associated them with Bible canon. Scofield's influence extended into the NAR, a movement that seeks to restore the offices of apostle and prophet within the contemporary church. The NAR views itself as the fulfillment of the Latter Rain's prophetic vision, with leaders adapting and expanding upon Scofield's teachings to emphasize the importance of prophetic revelation and charismatic gifts. His dispensationalist perspective provided a blueprint for the NAR's eschatology, which emphasizes the imminent return of Christ and the establishment of God's kingdom on earth. Scofield's influence far exceeds his controversy. Though his teachings have been criticized for promoting a rigid, literal interpretation of the Bible that can lead to extreme and divisive views, the movements that adopted his reference Bible embraced the extremism. The divisions caused by those ministries see the divisions as a means to separate the proverbial sheep from the goats. The supernatural elements emphasized by Scofield have been used to justify questionable practices and doctrines within the Latter Rain and NAR, contributing to their controversial reputations within the broader Christian community. Yet because many of those controversial ministries claim to have received the information published by Scofield as divine revelation, it would be impossible to measure his true influence on the NAR.